Namaste. Welcome to you all to our third session of Gita in the Times of Peril, Becoming Krishna. All right.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. When we were just sitting here for a couple moments with those noble souls, the AV team, stringing this together on a hope and a prayer today, gave me flashbacks of being in that situation far too many times. Shree asked me how I was doing, and I had to say, I'm in process. And I feel to just speak briefly to that as an entry point for today. And last evening, I found myself badly triggered. You know, I was on the receiving end of quite a negative projection that had so much anger behind it that it just caught me totally off guard. It felt like receiving a cannonball into my third chakra. And right before the the meeting we had here in Washoe Valley, I was just feeling the reverberations of this. And then had more of a chance to be with it this morning. And what it awoke in me was the anger in response, just this incredible fire, power, strength in the third chakra that felt like a sun sitting right there in the hara. And I was just allowing it to pulse and burn and blaze. And it struck me very much why the sun doesn't say things like, I'm here, I exist, I am, I matter. The sun just blazes. The sun just burns. And for me, I was aware that this unfolding was an incident of grace. And as you know, I mean, I'd say the majority of the time in Shree's path, grace doesn't look like what our images of grace are. And learning to recognize that is half the opportunity to being able to collaborate with the unfolding. But for me, as I was just feeling into that burn, and it really ran for a good hour. And there was, something of a wish to go outward, and then I would bring the energy back. And what I saw in the experience is something I heard numerous times in the small groups, and I think it's close to universal, if not universal. And it's this fear of our own power. Because right there, housed in my third chakra, literally is the power to destroy the universe. And literally, it's the power to create the universe at the same time. And prior to maybe a week ago, if I'd asked myself, what do I least want to be with in all of existence? Like, what are my egoic strategies and structures set up to prevent me from ever having to experience again? I would have unfailingly said, I want to avoid feeling completely invalidated and annihilated as an individual. That's still not high on my list, but like after this experience, what really struck me and why I think many of us have this fear of our power is that even more strongly housed in the same area of the body as the fear of being invalidated is the fear of annihilating others. So it's feeling that full-blown potentiality that could create or destroy a universe. And holding it, not acting, not even really going into thought about that person and how it was for them. It was so clear to me that what I received energetically was someone's response to their own powerlessness. And their, let's just call it an attack, was an attempt to come to their own power. And we so often do this unwittingly by making someone else small. And this too is why we make ourselves small, why we rein in our power and keep it to ourselves, is because we've all experienced that unwitting and unfortunate misuse of power and how it feels. But it's so clear to me that this is just the richest, most fertile ground for us to go into. You know, I think it was during the 9-day I had an experience of my third chakra burning in a similar way. And I had the image of my own power, like a sword, like Excalibur, that had been buried so deep into the stone of my being that it was practically inaccessible to me. And that's certainly been my strategy with not wanting to perpetrate or perpetuate the misuse of power that I've received in my own life. And so energetically, as I was pulling this sword out of the stone of my being, it didn't come out cleanly. It was really clear to me there were parts that were jagged. There were parts that were barbed. And this is what gave me fear and concern, because I could see how, with such a relative lack of practice, I would find myself in situations of acting or speaking from this power, and it was going to carry that taint and that tarnish of the tendencies I carry to demean others, to disparage them, to make them small so that I can be large. So I feel that this issue goes to the heart of so much of our work here, because it's like when these charges come in, and under the anger, after I'd sat with it for an hour, there was a real field of diminishment. And I still have that active in my system right now. Under the anger was the way in which I absorbed this blow that really rang my bell. But what I find for myself, and I think this is in large part the work of the small groups, is we're training ourselves to stay with and be with what we don't want to be with, right? Because with any of these, my personality didn't want to feel the anger at 2 a.m, wanted to sleep. Didn't want to feel the diminishment right before another broadcast. I mean, at this point, I'm just like, it's just going to happen. But we're training ourselves by going into these shaky places, deep down in these lower chakras. And as we do so, we're ultimately building the capacity to be with what we least want to be with in all of existence. That which our personality is dead set on experiencing again. And it's such a paradox, because that quaking ground of our own annihilation or the annihilation of the other is actually the most fertile, powerful state possible for us to access. It's literally the threshold to the state of consciousness of Krishna. You would never think that. You would never think that. And this is where we all get caught, is in the unwitting strategies and structures that are ensuring the survival of our personality. We're unwittingly preventing ourselves from seeing grace when it arises and leaning into the opportunity and enduring that searing discomfort. There's no question for me, that's the gateless gate. And I say this as much for myself as an offering to any of you that this has resonance for. Because what I'm doing in a fairly balanced state of consciousness is like I'm training my system. I'm leaving a trail of breadcrumbs. Because when these things hit you, you're not going to have the brilliance of your awakening. You're not going to have the intelligence of your gut. It's going to be reverberating with pain. So it's really training ourselves to hold these occurrences of grace with what Shree speaks of as right information. I mean, this was what he spoke of in his first talk. The first of the many powers he listed was the power of context. And when we can have that context, we can begin to collaborate in what our personality is dead set against experience again, but which is actually the very doorway, the very portal through which we pass into what our soul most longs for. It's just such an exquisite paradox. So, of course, right, it was grace to get the cannonball and everything that has unfolded since. And that's my offering today. Thank you.
I'm just feeling to applaud. I'm, I mean, this is a demonstration of what we're talking about. The knower and the body, of the knower of the body. So the battlefield is the body. He described it perfectly. The cannonball to his gut, being there with it, recognizing what is there was the defeat and the revenge, as well as the revenge and the remorse. So it's this dynamic paradox just demonstrated. So I just want to, hey, I'm going to retire. This was beautiful. And it's so true with the conversation we're having today. I was telling him that his handout for day, that's the whole thing. How can we cover that today? You know, don't we have 3 weeks of this or 2 remaining weeks at least? So he just completed it. So for him, this was a truth for this meeting. Now, for the rest of us, however, who are still in the, oh my God, I hope this doesn't happen to me. Welcome to what we're talking about. Welcome to the universal aspect of the journey. And I want to kind of bring it back down to kind of the fundamental principles that the Gita is pointing to, of which Satsangs' revelation is a clear reflection of. This is the Gita singing through him, singing from his own knowing and his own experience. Now, I know the years Satsangs has had to go through, like being plummeted continuously by his previous adaptation to existence, not just this life, multiple lives, to come to this point. And I know that this capacity to commit to and endure the process is only for a few. That's what it says in the 7th chapter. They don't say it's few because you're special. It's for a few who can survive the process of this aspect of the journey, because it's about like becoming capable of holding what nobody else knows to hold or could hold as part of your embodiment. I mean, no self-regarding ego would ever think this was the path they wanted to sign up for. Usually it ends up that you sign up for and the ego's already almost dead and what's living you is something else. So that's how you get through the gateless gate, is something else is seeking to manifest itself in you than you. Because I guarantee it's going to kick and scream whenever it can get your ear or get your attention, right? Whenever you give your attention to your ego, guess what? The ego gets important. This is too much. I can't handle it. I'm not strong enough. I don't want to know it. We give attention to that. That's where we go. We become that. How could I ever do this? Oh, no, it's not for me. It's not. It is the trap of not recognizing our innate powers and our unwittingly application of those powers towards the egoic and the conditioning patterns that we're really wanting to be free of, but unwittingly are deeply invested in. This is the paradox of our work and this work and what the invitation of this entire program is about. Because what can motivate us to go beyond ourselves is to be aware of the peril. Peril is you, that ego, that structure in you that is so deeply embedded that you don't know, that is holding, like Satsangs said, the power of that supreme power, that Gandhaiva, the bow, that you not only dropped, you embedded it in your diminishment, so you would never have to risk the battlefield. So it's a beautiful analogy for recognizing how much we need to know ourselves. We need to know ourselves not only as the knower of ourself, but as the body in which the knower resides. Embodiment is the integration of all that has come, dark and light, high and low, misery and joy and happiness. It's the culmination is occurring right here with you in this. And that is stored in the record of your embodiment. All that in you, both its miraculous potential and this devastating collapse into matter. So when we become aware of the peril of not knowing, the peril of perpetuating the ignorance, then the possibility becomes available. And with the possibility, we open the door to begin to hold a way of holding, creating a context for how we can come out of this peril. Now, what Das just demonstrated and what I'm teaching and transmitting here is for you to get what it is you are. Well, you are already in truth. And I want to be clear that you come into this with lots of powers, as we've listed before, but you haven't been utilizing them. Rather, your ego has been utilizing them. It has been determining what you attend to. It has been determining what you commit to. It is determining what you want and what you don't want, what you're afraid of and what you're attracted to and repulsed by. And the powers get tangled up in the ego reinforcing itself. So withdraw your power from those things means first you have to find out your ego. You've got to get to know who you are. This who you are, you can't get to know unless there's also a knower. A knower capable of knowing more than it knew before. So it's this collaboration between these two parts of ourselves, that which holds the ignorance and carries the possibility for the miraculous manifestation, and that which knows it. So that's the field and the knower of the field. And that's the conversation today. We're looking to understand what we mean by embodiment as something much vaster, deeper, and truer than other people are just looking to ground themselves so they can handle their day-to-day life or to come out of their anxiety or their unease or their reactivities. Now, this is something different. This is something called being here fully. Being, living life as you. As you. What is this you? There are 4 stages of realization. All of what you are. They all come in the unfolding of our development, first as human beings, and then in the stages of the spiritual journey, ultimately when we become into the opportunity of becoming a universal being. So there are 4 primary realizations. Now, realization is the third of 3 types of knowing. The first is the recognition, and that's kind of a knowing somehow, but you don't know how you know. Then there's the revelation, the revealing of that which you recognized, and that's the unfolding of that which you had recognized. Getting clarity, understanding, seeing the context in which it arises and how it interconnects to all the other pieces of what you're recognizing. Realization means it's become yours. It's become real. What you recognized and what was revealed to you is now real. And where does it end up real? In your body. Your body is the place that the realization happens. The error to think, and there is a think, that this world is the falsehood and that the truth is a transcendent reality. But that's an error. It's an error because it's half true. This is the domain of manifestation. You, in your physical body, the best you can be is how the universe manifests itself. There's no way spirit and matter can come together except through each of us. It just can't happen. There is no supreme being anyplace else that matters except in you, in your body. That's the goal of the creation. That's the ultimate possible outcome. Now, how do we get there? I can tell you, you're not going to do it with the ego you have now that thinks it can't do it. You're not going to do it with the way you're looking at this right now where, well, he's going to teach me and maybe I can get something. As long as I don't have to give up the parts I still want to hang on to, right? It's not going to be good enough. It's not there enough. It's not here enough. You can't fight a battle from the hillock above where the Mahabharat's occurring. You can only fight the battle by in the battle. And where is the battle? It's the field. It's the body. It's the Kurukshetra. It's the Karma Kshetra. It's the introduction to the entire Bhagavad Gita. It's here right now with you in your body. The whole damn thing is there. You work it out here, the universe is just going to adapt to you. You become the supreme being, you make everything else a supreme being. If you can find that within you, you got it, that's it. But by the way, you're not going to be able to do that until every little piece of all of yous have gotten together and aligned with this purpose. Okay, so no one's going to say this is easy, that success is assured, that you can do it. I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass about how difficult this is. This is tough. This is hard. This means you have to trust in something bigger than yourself. It means that you have to let go of all the normal, ordinary cautions that your ego comes up with, even the best of them within its ideals and its beliefs and its values. Because these will all have to die some point in the battlefield, just like Bhishma and Karna and all the others on the Kaurava's side had to die. The only assurance I can give you, sooner or later, they will all be dead. All those things, sooner or later in the evolution of this process in you, this life, the next 100 lives, they are already dead if you're willing to play your part, to show up, to recognize the battlefield. Okay, so let's get back to the 4 realizations, because these are the 4 critical realizations that can allow you to come to a place where you can actually embody, where you can truly embody, where you're the whole thing here. And so the first realization is the one that comes when you realize who you are as a person. Now, for me, this happened through the course of living my life. I know I was trying to transcend into once I came out of my darkness and I was in my early 20s, anything I wanted was to get out, and be in that connection I had with Mara Baba, and to feel that love and to become that kind of divine being. And that was the whole strategy until it was one day after he passed away and all that motive fell away when he died. And they told me the people who carried his tradition, Sufism Reoriented in San Francisco, they said, hey, sorry, Scott, you carry a lot of potential, but the only way forward for you is to go back into life. And that's what I did. I said, okay, I give up. I'm just going to make the best of life that I can make up. And that's from that, very soon I chose to become an architect. So it became a 25-year process where what I was running from got met. 4 of those years was working intensively with anger management, owning the shit and the defeat, just like Sata shared, that coexists in your activity and the structure of protection and control that is buried in that anger management process. And what was the process? I got used to it. I got familiar to it. I began to recognize it. Now, I didn't know that I was meeting it during those years. I wasn't awake, just like everybody. I was a good human being. I was an idealistic human being, but I wasn't awake. But I knew that when I was working to come to responsibility and some degree of mastery over that raging structure that I carried in my third chakra, by the way, that's where I carried, where all actually my power was, my power to manifest as a person was, where my power to protect what I was trying to create was. I could be scary when I was as an architect making jobs happen. I was a force that had clients shrivel up in fear when that would come forward. So I knew there was this power that I carried that I had owned. And with that, I realized myself as a person. I met the spectrum of what could love and what could hate and what could resent and what could be angry and what could react. And I got familiar with it. So when I was in my late 40s, there was this ease as a person. Like I was okay, and no matter what, you're okay. I mean, and I didn't have any requirement for people to show up any different way than the way they showed up. And it's like I said, the secret of happiness during that time, this was a story I would tell everybody back then. The secret of happiness was low expectations. I don't expect the world to be any different than it is. I don't need the world to be any different than it is. It is just what it is. Now, at that time, I didn't know that was a realization. I just knew life was easier, and I just knew I was enjoying myself. And then unwittingly, the universe just started making me more universal as I got involved in solar energy and renewable energy and solar energy business and arguing for net metering in the state of Nevada and helping pass the law and all that. I didn't know what was having me do that. I was saying, God, I'd rather build all my model airplanes on my time off, not this. What's going on? It's not the life I had figured. I'd get my life handled and I could just do the things I love to do and then work now and then. It wasn't part of the plan. So something else took over before my awakening happened when I was 50, actually 49. So there was a sense of self, a person. That's why I can do this. Because as a person, I had to meet a lot of shit. I had to go through collapses and collapses and collapses in my relationships, in my husband, in my children, in my work, in my finances. There was almost no part of life that didn't collapse and have to be built again in the course of my life. So I lived my life. By that time of my awakening, I was okay. It was okay. If I died now, I died later. If I exist after I die or not, I was a happy agnostic. And by the way, I know a lot of you have some version of that. Maybe you don't have it as deeply embodied as I did, but some version of that. That's the first realization. I'm a person. I'm in life. Maybe there's a God, maybe there's not. I have found a way to be in a relationship with existence that's perfectly fulfilling. There's nothing else needed, nothing else wanted. I'm not dependent on anything. I'm recognizing that I'm the one that's choosing making this important or that important, choosing to let my reactivity overtake me or choosing not to let it have a voice. I have gained what we could call some mastery, some personal mastery on coming into life. But I didn't know what I had come to. And I didn't know how critical my body was, how the role it played in carrying the blows and the processes and the reorganization that was needed. It was happening, but my consciousness wasn't attending to how my body was doing. I can tell you that when I was coming out of my drug addiction, I knew my body was hurting. I knew it was in a lot of craving, and I knew next to rage, craving was my next major enemy. And I knew that I had to live with that enough and not act on it in order to be able to come into life in any meaningful way. Because I had met the peril when I was 19. I had seen, my God, I could totally fuck this up. I could blow the whole opportunity. There was some part of me that just recognized I was being really stupid. I was acting out things I was not being responsible for. All this raging on top of all this suppressed anguish and pain and and unexperienced experience was clearly the peril, and that I needed to create a life beyond that. So these are the lessons that have came with me when I got introduced to the universe. Now that opens a door to the next stage of knower, and that is to know yourself as the knower, to become that. And that's right there in the 8th chapter of the Gita. It speaks to that absolute principle. Well, it's not absolute, it's the Brahmanic principle. So it's not yet the Sat, it's the Brahman. But that principle that is impersonal, that is ultimately transcendent, absolute transcendent, where it says, I am that. That principle of I am that is, there's nothing else except that. You get to the non-dual state, then what that I am that says in its transcendence, it then can say, I am this. But interimly, I am that. I'm out here. I mean, the chapter reads the verses of one in that state. It basically says, one who attains me, let me find that word. Yes. Those who have attained me have no more births, and they do not come to this world of misery and transitory existence. Right? How many of you really want that? All the rest of this is just to get that, right? Just get out of Dodge, never have to come back. I mean, that was my goal for years. I mean, all the sannyasis sitting around the mountain who I walked by or I sat with, or in all those years in India, that's all they wanted. They wanted to get out of Dodge forever. They didn't want to be here. And there was a part of me that said, yes, 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 that. Let me be that. And when that came, took everything of the bliss away with me. So be careful about what you ask for. But it was an eternal, clearly, a resting place. But son of a bitch, it was the bugs, it was the mosquitoes, it was the heat or the humidity or something. And there was no longer that. There was not this. It became a nete, not this place, not this teacher, not this process. So it actually had very little power when it came to coming into my embodiment. Because the first thing I would want to do when that would happen is try to get back to that. Right? That's what transcendence is. It has little power. It is simply giving all the power to the transcendence, not to the powers that lie inherent in the body, not to the powers that we were born to learn, to understand, recognize, and master. But it's a start point. It's a start point because the nature of I am that is able to stand free of desire, free of need or want, or even if its body and the system's overtaking it, not believing that those are truths. It gives us an authority by which we can start laying claim to the parts of us that are not there yet. So when you know you are that, that's the second knower. The nature of that, even though it wants to say not this, just that, is the place where you can start choosing this. Then it could come down and meet that in this. Right? Don't get lost in the whatever that is, pronouns. But making this that then becomes the journey. And then what happens? Well, you've got this very big knower now, in which the body is just this tiny little vessel. But the body responds to the presence of the knower. And how does the body respond to the presence of the knower? With love, with Shakti, with bliss, with breathless, wonder, love, awe, gratitude. And the remaining parts of this, of the ego, that didn't want that, say, that is so cool. That is what I want. The ego starts becoming the collaborator, and what that feeling is devotion. The transition from the 8th chapter, which is the universal design of the existence, the huge, vast field of the unfolding of the creation, becomes this very simple, childlike worship for the magnificence that's now coming, that the quality of the little personal knower is discovering a greater kind of knower, another version of you, another version of ourself that wasn't there before. And all it wants to be is in this process of becoming, moving from this to that. And it's worship that allows that process to happen. And that leads us to the 3rd state of realization. And that is, I am God. I'm the embodiment of love. I'm the divine Shakti. I'm the world mother. I'm the one that loves all, everything. I love me, I love you, I love us all. I love the world, I love the universe. It's a love that knows no bound. And in that state of unconditional loving that's coming up in this conversion process of this becoming that, that's when transformation accelerates. This, that becoming this is transformation. The knower is becoming the known. The process of that becoming this is the process of knowing a greater knower. And in that, the surrender of the lesser previous knowers, by the way, they both coexist. The you as a person, the you as the absolute, is going along with this process with you as God. So they are accumulation of realizations that have reached enough momentum that worship is there. Now, when we're in the state of worship, we're children. We surrender our power, we surrender our ego to that which is coming. And in the process, we become that, but embodied in the person, in the vehicle that allows your personhood to exist, in the vehicle that allows you to be in this dimension of reality. And that being God, literally, I've seen it. I've seen it myself, and I've seen it in others where it's just like nothing can touch you. Everything is beautiful. You're just right there in the world, but really you're not quite grounded. Your feet aren't really touching the ground. You're just, it's the flowers, it's the blossoms, not the stems and the roots. You're in this wonderful transcendent world where even the weeds look glorious. Everything looks glorious. You know, the ugly food, the garbage, it's all glorious. It's all glorious. Oh, look at all that funding possible biological process so that these beautiful flowers could grow all around me. It's this intoxicated state of madness, just skimming over the top of the worst of things. It itself is somewhere in between the transcendence of the that, I am that, and the gloriousness of becoming this. But it hasn't yet grounded. It hasn't yet met what is then, in fact, in the realization of who you are at this stage, is the shared archetypal darkness. It's the shared piece of the collective error that your body is carrying not just now in this time in the collective consciousness, but in this entire evolutionary process of coming into existence out of survival and success, out of the struggle and effort of consciousness emerging up out of the offside. And in this process, that principle that's absolute, beyond transcendence, beyond the creation, is beginning to come into relationship with that which is so lost and embedded in the inconscience. So our body carries in our consciousness as the knower that absolute principle. And the total ruin, devastation, darkness of the inconscient as it had merged up through the evolution of consciousness. Now at this stage, this transition between the God state and the fourth realization, this is the toughest territory because it's very, very hard to give up the gloriousness of the God realization, the beauty and the love and a purpose, and it's approximation. It is. All the great teachers bring that much because they don't want to get their feet in the mud. They don't want to get caught into the roots because they had not developed enough mastery over themselves as a human being. Therefore, they don't know how to be with this thing as a collective being. Our development as individuals then becomes the obstacle if it's not sufficient to be able to make this transition from the third realization to the fourth. This realization of becoming the supreme being, what it requires of us, is to dive into that darkness as the opportunity to more further make that this. But then you're not doing it just for yourself. Although you were in the God plane feeling you were doing it for everyone, you were not creating a fundamental shift in the possibility of their embodiment. Rather, you were enhancing some aspects of the higher aspects of their embodiment in the process of becoming that. So there was love, there's Shakti, there's bliss. And if you're lucky, somewhere in that process, the body starts awakening. Kundalini Shakti starts opening up. Second chakra starts opening up, and you want to screw everybody. And the second chakra opens up. You want to, every time you hug, it's like having an orgasm with anything. Tree, people, children, you know, carrying a box from UPS. Everything becomes an embracing of that glorious quality. But it is in itself not sufficient for the fourth realization. That capacity, however, doesn't go away. The development or the lack of development of you as an individual realized self doesn't go away when you become that. It's still there as the problem. When you become aware of God, it's still there. And in the process of being in this third state of realization, much can be brought forward. Much can be shown. You can forgive. You can let go in that field of worship and love. So it is preparatory so that when the fourth stage, when the fourth realization starts coming to you, you have a capacity to be with darkness that none of the previous states by themselves could have done it fully. Because the preparation of your system as a personally realized being and the willingness to sacrifice your transcendent reality are developed enough in the third stage that it's the preparation for the fourth stage of realization. And it happens naturally, by the way. We're not the ones who choose to be the supreme being. It happens as an extension of the worship. It happens as an extension of the highest that we have available, and to some extent, the willingness to the collaboration to continue to refine the realization of that's still not there in our individual human, as well as to let go of the transcendent freedom in order to be engaged in this. Now, of course, when you're in the third stage, the Ananda makes becoming this something you want. And therefore, inevitably, it comes to a place where all what was incomplete or not truly aligned with the purpose into a a transformational process, a readying process, where you as an individual develop the capacity to hold and be with the paradox of the unfolding cacophony at times of the creation in a way where you're, as an individual, fully there. You as a person, your personality, your nature is more and more fully present with what your purpose is and what is the peril that is happening. And that in us is a call to serve humanity. That in us is a call to be useful. That in us is where we become the noble souls that are willing to sacrifice themselves for the possibility for a world where they are not going to benefit or lose, in fact, because at that point you're assured the realizations of each of these realizations don't go away. They can temporarily be veiled, but they don't go away. They, as a matter of fact, as you progress from one stage of realization to another, they expand. They become more integrative. They become more true. They may become more applicable to so many more other people. So the realization will never be defeated. It can't be defeated because it is completely an expression of what the fourth realization is, which is the Supreme Being. The fully operating human being, fully aware of the absolute transcendence, fully in touch with a vast love, but no longer intoxicated, no longer just seeking the vastness, no longer trying to avoid being a human. But all these things become included, and it's only you, here now, with this. And the quality of the realization of the Supreme Being is the song of the Gita. It is the singing of the purpose that started with the home to come into existence, to learn, to grow, to evolve, but ultimately to know itself in its manifestation. And that principle, that song, inevitably creates listeners, creates those who can receive that song, who can feel that vibration. And that vibration that comes from the fourth state of realization, that is drawing on the very original intent of the Sat, and it accelerates the evolutionary process by injecting the quality of its realization into all that can receive, and even if they can't, expanding their capacity to receive for as long as the song sings. Now let's just take a minute and see. Can you find the song singing you? Or do you find all that in you which is still kicking and screaming? Which of your realizations aren't complete? Which are the ones that are still struggling and struggling to get something for its little self, to make safe, more comfortable, where it doesn't have to give up everything? What's the part that's not yet surrendered, not yet willing? Sit with this a little bit. Let this sink in, because the song will reveal, because it's a vibration. The vibration will reveal those vibrations that are not able to match it. Meeting that vibration that can match it is how you convert that lower vibration into the higher vibration. Feeling this in your body is the fastest way to make it real. So when we start looking at the nature of your embodiment, then I ask you right now, what is your body telling you? What is it happening in your body? In your first chakra, in your second chakra, in your third chakra, in your diaphragm, in your heart, in your throat, in your head, the bottoms of your feet, your calves and your thighs, the torso, your arms, your neck, the skull. What's it saying? What is there? As I speak, listen to your body. What is your body doing? What's resonating? What's not? What's saying yes? What's saying no? I'm not feeling anything there. What is being lifted up? What is still resisting? You'll feel these. It's a sensation, not of those words. It'll be there. It'll be a disturbing sensation. There is resistance. It'll be something in the gut or the diaphragm probably, or a pain in the second chakra, or a contraction, a discomfort in the first. It can be any number of things. Everything that needs to be resolved will move more quickly the more you use your powers to align with the recognition of what your body talk is telling you. What is the notes of your body? What is it singing? You'll feel the singing of your little child. You're overtaken part of yourself from the cacophony of life at that time. It'll be the parts of yourself that you discovered that you didn't like about yourself, your rage, your anger, your activity, your out of controlness, your inability to focus, whatever it may be. It'll be this whole collection of content that's not yet up to what the song is calling you to. You know, Krishna, it was the piper, right? He's singing a song. And it's drawing those to the song. And in the process, they begin to unwittingly start singing the song themselves. This is the nature of the Supreme Being. It is the creator of the song in the midst of the non-song and the cacophony, in the discord, in the imbalance. It's singing this song of truth. It's singing this song of love. And the cacophony surrenders in that moment of the song being heard. And can a piece of that cacophony take advantage of that? Only if they're prepared. Only if the soil is ready. Otherwise, it'll be a remnant, an echo, probably never recognized by the conscious mind. That will eventually grow and grow to some life where that might manifest. So your body is the key. True embodiment is going to be proportional to the stage of realization you're in. If you're in the beginning stage of realization, then your embodiment is going to be some kind of proximity of taking care of your diet and exercising. It's going to be something in the category of making sure the body lasts. And that's useful. That's useful at the physical level, the level of yoga, at the level of the practices that keep you healthy. These are useful. And that does help. Or the second realization, unfortunately, is probably the least helpful, because I said, why should I control what I eat? Doesn't make any difference. This isn't a matter. Body is just biological stuff. Good. Who wants to be with this? That's not very particularly helpful in itself, the second realization. Except when the first realization comes in and say, well, maybe I should feed it, or maybe I should exercise, or maybe I should take care of this thing that's growing on my leg, It does pull that down into meeting this. And by the way, the universe will make sure that happens. You can't stay that for very long and have a body and not have to meet some of this through pain, discomfort, or over the rest of it. And that's how the universe will teach us in our development as we move from that to this, is if you try to stay on that and you still have a body, well, the world can still teach you. You can still evolve. If you don't have a body, well, you can stay in that for a very, very long time. 1,000 yugas, they say. You'll stay there until the next 1,000 yugas where the creation ceases to exist, and you'll pop up in a body after that 1,000 yugas is over. So, you're going to eventually have to come to this. This will eventually get that. It'll grab it by the tail. It'll cook it back in. Because as long as you have a body, You're part of the evolution. And as long as you have a body, you have a responsibility for your piece of that evolution. I'm sorry, that is the ultimate truth. Because the reason Sat became Asat was so that it could wake up to its purpose and to manifest that. So if you're not doing that, then, you know, this world will not make it easy for you. There'll be consequences. But if you are making that important the best way you can, then the world will move alignment with you. I say, you align with Dharma, and it just gets better and better. If you don't align with Dharma, it gets worse and worse. Boo. That's how it works. Because there is a purpose in this flow. And if you have a body, you're part of that purpose, if you like it or not. So you might as well collaborate. You're going to be drafted into this work at some point or another. It's better to choose now. And then you begin to discover all those other realizations that you don't yet have. And the possibility of you being useful, which of course is the greatest fulfillment. So there is this movement when we begin to listen to our body, where we become more capable of listening to our body, and our body becomes more capable of hearing us. And that play between the body and the knower of the body becomes the means where the Sat joins with the Asat, and together with the Shiva and the Shakti manifest the purpose of this existence. In that time and space, in that vehicle, in that circumstances, in that part of the thisness you're in. And from there it expands to whatever role the Supreme needs at that time, proportional to our ability to accept that role, to be responsible for what we're becoming. And that is the power of realization. When you realize this is true, you become responsible for what you've become. When you become responsible for what you've become, you start tapping into the foundational structure of what the Supreme Being is. It's here for all of us. It's here to manifest, to hold open and sustain the possibility of the million generations that have yet to be born. It is the one that keeps the possibility of the unfolding of evolution going, manifesting into different and multiplicities of actualizations. All right, I have more, but I thought maybe we should take a break here. Satas, you have anything you want to throw in here?
What I'm aware of is it's exquisite. I'm receiving the wisdom my soul's always longed for. So I was just wondering, I was looking out at this screen and thinking, I hope it's good for you too, you know?
Hope you're having a good time too at this party, right? Yeah. Not too many of you in absolute terror at the moment. Not that it couldn't happen, but. All right, well, you want to open up and get some people to come forward?
Yeah.
How about some of you just come on forward? We'll just open up for a bit, and then we'll go back and see how far we can get, and then open up again. So 3 people or so who would like to speak to this, just let us know.
Okay. Yeah. First up is Kali Ma. This is Kali Ma from Kentucky.
All right. Kali Ma. You got my last email, right?
I did, and it is perfect, Shree. You stated it perfectly. That there is no error, and also that staying in the hiding and the diminishment does not serve. So perfect.
Good.
And your revelation, which I managed to stay awake for the whole thing this time. And I am perfectly in alignment with you. Your transmission brought me perfectly into alignment. And so that's what you open with about the anger. This morning, I had this episode where I called the vet's office. I was trying to order dog medicine. It was a big mess, and I ended up kind of being angry. And afterward, I thought, look at that anger. What is that all about? And then in this revelation, I see the perfection of it. And Shree, I never understood that story that you've told where like you were in trying to get out into traffic and this big like rage was welling up and then just and but now I totally get it. It's the supreme being in this moment.
Yes. Showing itself, revealing the
Yes.
power that happens when we align with the source of all powers as in that moment. So, and of course, there could have been a car wreck. Then that would have been an opportunity for me to see if I get lost in the consequences of that power or if I can hold that too.
Because at first I was thinking, well, was I short with these ladies on the phone and they don't deserve that and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it's not even about that. It's this whole other opportunity. It's just, and the other day I was in a small, well, it was a mother book study where the facilitator, as she came out of the silence, she just spoke to something that had arisen in her that she was aware of, like something like a wanting to be seen or something. And it was like, this is it. It's not whatever you think it's supposed to be. It's what it actually is, and if you can be aware and catch it.
Yes, it's this.
Yes.
The thing that's arising in this moment is how we convert this to that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Perfect. All right, my dear. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Next up is Shree Ma.
Leave it up for so both Das and I are on the screen at the same time. There we go. Shree Ma.
Hello.
Namaste.
Namaste. Wow, everything you've talked about is so meaningful to me. I kind of wanted to bring forward, I've just been on a roller coaster, Shree. I've just been like at the highest highs and then go figure the lowest low. All of a sudden, like I'm just very up and down. But anyways, what I was going to say is, after the 9-day, right at the last day of the 9-day, actually, I went into, I usually don't get so riled up about politics or anything, but I just went off the deep end. And I just went into like this rage and this terrible upset about the election and Trump. And of course, I had to vent it to my husband, who every once in a while has to say something good about Trump that, which just set me off even more. But it was so perfect. I mean, that's what the 9-day was supposed to bring up, right? All the stuff that's hidden. And it was such a blessing because we worked it out. We dealt with kind of some issues that we had always been dealing with that had never been dealt with. But it was a true rage. And there's other things that for some reason I've just been really feeling. I never thought I was tapping into the collective consciousness, but I wonder if that's what it was. Like I've just been tapping into something that's not me, that's more of the collective. But anyways, I dealt with it, and especially even today, I came to a place where, I felt again like I can hold it all. Like I felt love for, I've never been able to stand Pence or Mitch McConnell, those, but it was just like this mother love came through that's like, even in your ignorance, even in your lying, even in your cheating, even whatever negative I see, oh, you're just children, you don't understand, you're just lost in ignorance. And I just felt huge love for the whole world, all the ignorance, everything, and I was able to hold it. And
there you have it.
Yeah, but so it goes back to what Das was talking about. Also, where I'm finding I'm lost, like I can hold it for the big picture. I can hold it for the whole world, the universe, the you know, people I don't know personally. It's easier that way. But then I come back, there's, you know, still one situation with a friend of mine where I see I'm still holding a grudge. Like I was hurt and I was angry, and I'm having, my question is, how do I deal when it's more personal like that? It's harder for me to let go. Like I know when you're saying feel it in the body, I could feel all this vibration in my heart all the way up, just that vibration and love and power and strength, but nothing in these lower chakras. And when I tried to feel into that, I was like, oh, I bet that's that personal situation that I don't want to let go of my righteousness about. And
Very good. You're pointing to exactly the nature of the developmental stage. If you have issues in the development of you as an individual person, where you're still unduly attached, duly invested, unduly reactive, unduly pulled to attraction and repulsion, then these are what's going to come up as you grow into the manifestation of where you are, which is the third realization of yourself as a manifestation of Divine Mother. So this is the territory. And what you're doing, the thing that's important is you're holding both this piece, this undeveloped part of you, and that simultaneous. When you hold who you are, which you almost can't but do, and this, it lifts this as the same time bringing that down to this in the paradox. When those two come together, this becomes that, and that's love. It's also true, but right now, love is the healing for the parts of you that's still vested as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, as a person with friends, as all these things. That investment is what is part of this that is still not reached the maturity of your realization as goddess, as a goddess. So that's the process. And if you didn't do that, if you didn't become aware of it, the universe will give you a cannonball like it gave to Satas. It'll hit you right in the gut where that issue is still residing, right? And then the rage will come up, and there it is. It's just showing you exactly what you need to be with, where the rage becomes a entry point into the transformative power that you carry in your body through your third chakra. Now, I got to tell you, I have that rage when it comes to the collective. And when we did the world peace meditation yesterday, which was very powerful for me, I wasn't doing it, but there was this clear blowing up of the darkness and the ignorance in, millions of people all over the world. We're like in War of the Worlds, when the ray hit the person, they turned to dust and remnants of cloth. They just all went poof, 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 all over the world. Now, what is that? I don't know. I didn't do that, but it did come from this Kali principle in the Shiva that was destroying the ignorance, destroying the untruth. That holding that and not identifying with that is the maturity of my previous realizations. Let me know, okay, I hope it didn't create too much damage, but it is the way I've come to it, because when we're aligned with truth, even when we do it in error, it serves. Even when we're still vested in being right, even when we're still blaming or in a rage that you can tell is part of that kind of rebellion against the way things are, be it in politics or wherever, people at the dentist office, or at the vet's office. It is simply a power of making apparent that inherent capacity to manifest in the collective. It will convert everything into itself. This is where guilt or regret becomes a barrier. Because as soon as a bigger force in you comes through and you feel guilty about it, then you lay claim to the karma. See, the opposite of shame is guilt. You are ashamed and guilt. Those two principles keep us locked into a diminished paradigm that says good and bad, evil or not evil. It is a error at the level of consciousness, not the level of functioning human beings, not the level of operable society. You need these values. You need these guidelines for humanity to cooperate together to continue to evolve as a species. We need the world order. We do need the world order, which is shaped by those good, bad, right, wrong, legal, illegal. And that is useful. But when we come to this place, taking that on as ours now, when you are becoming a channel and an instrument for something that has a much larger purpose, that's empowering ultimately the world order, but interimly may look like it's destroying it, that would get in the way of you then unwittingly getting guilty about something really you didn't do, something greater than you did. But be clear, that's not until one has come to the third stage. You know, when you're in that, then you're going to be, there are many people who have come the awareness and they misbehave terribly and create consequences. And if they did descend into them, they will have remorse and guilt. Then they own the sin. If they didn't have guilt and remorse, then they wouldn't be in the second stage. It would be in the third stage. And then it says it's all for love. It's all for love. But then also for someone who's in that place, when they come down, they rationalize and justify their bad actions. So it's not so simple. But the issue is discovering the truth of our error is to discover another aspect of your manifesting capacity. And it's not about avoiding making error. It's not avoiding being wrong. It is about meeting what is so, what is arising for you. Okay, so there you are. When love comes, you almost guarantee you and they and everybody's healed. And you're right, your lower chakras are still needing to go beyond her attachment, her investment, what you've made important in your life up until this moment. It's not that these people or circumstances or things are the issue, it's your attachment, investment, according to those things. That is the problem.
So how can I release? What's the easiest, best, quickest way to release it? Just sit with it? Just pay attention?
Absolutely. The releasing, you got the physical component, go out and yell and scream or run or work out to release the physical component of it. But don't take any action. Don't call your friend up and say, God, I'm so sorry. I've been holding this righteousness with you. Don't need to. It'll heal just by holding it.
Okay.
When we own it, it can move. When we can't own it, it'll stay in place. Because unwittingly, you'll be taking care of her. And that's not serving if she doesn't want to be taken care of. It's only serving you. If she calls up and said, let's talk, then there's an opening.
Got it. Thank you. I'll just share really quickly when you were talking about doing the World Peace Meditation, the last couple that we've done, I had such a clear vision of, after pouring the light into the middle of the earth, and then it just kind of expands throughout the entire earth. I've had this image of, it's like a shattering, like almost like, crackling, like all the ignorance is starting to crackle and it's making all these cracks where the light is coming in and the whole ignorant shell or within and around the earth is being shattered and the light is starting to come in. So
it's like exactly the scab of adaptation of the old Dharma is being broken up so we can expand into a collective consciousness, a greater consciousness. So it has to be broken up so that a new body of being can come into existence. That's exactly what's happening. So it was a perfect insight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Devadatta.
Devadatta, namaste. Good to see you.
Namaste. Thank you so much, Shree. Thank you so much, Sadas, for this opportunity. There's actually so much I would like to share. When I listen to both of you, there is so much going on in my system, and I'm trying to formulate the most perfect question. And it's really, so is it okay if I share some things what is happening in my system, and who knows, there will be a question then. It's
Yes, yes. Do just that. Tell me what's happening in your system.
Well, there is for sure a lot of recognition. It's storming inside of my system. There is so much energy, and what really hit me, Sadaz, when you were sharing about grace. And yes, I have a very, I think a very, well, probably a wrong interpretation of the concept grace. Because this is really like, in a way, when let's say when I meditate, when I'm here with you all, when I'm listening to you, Shree, I feel such a strong connection, and I feel like there is a huge surrender, and the surrender is more and more there when I meditate. But then when I'm in the midst of my daily life with all the challenges, I am totally Arjuna. And when I'm meditating, because the title of this whole retreat is Becoming Krishna, and I know it, but then when I'm in the midst of all the challenges and all the things I'm doing, I am totally not in surrender so often. And then I realize there is so much, I feel so many attachments, and I know it, and still there is a suffering. And it's just such a weird dialogue then, because I know I experienced truth, I experienced love. And then at the same time, I feel lost in a way. And I know there is not so for example, in this whole Corona thing, I'm thinking during the day, okay, what if we are 6 months further? Then probably there is a vaccine and we can continue with everything. But now I realize, but actually this whole Corona thing is grace, because this whole crisis is waking up something else inside of me. Finally, this is why I'm here. So let's embrace and surrender to Corona, and then show up, but stop being so attached to whatever the result is. So this is the internal dialogue.
It sounds like you've got both the questions and answers going on simultaneously. and therefore you're clearly, David Dodd, this is what transformation is. As I was speaking of, when we come to a higher state of realization, when we're moving from one to another, that which was previous starts having to adapt to that which has come. And that's true when you move to where you are now, which is as God manifesting, that in you which is still undeveloped, that in you that had an idea of his own awareness, these are now being brought up to a new vibrational level where you can hold the paradox of you being bound by your personality, by your attachments, by your reactivities, by your preferences, simultaneously with you as being that, you as recognizing your love, and that love has been the organizing principle for your whole life, and that you've lived to be useful. Yes, there's the ego that's laying claim to it, that wants the attention and wants to be important. And there is this purposeful love that is the motivating principle behind it. They can all just be. Mm-hmm. Your willingness to let yourself stay engaged in life at the level of the first attainment, because you're still developing yourself as a human being in the world to become more and more effective and perfect in what that effectiveness would look like, which may not be about doing it perfectly, it's about doing it imperfectly, actually perfectly. And this process of learning to come into existence in the only way we can in the domain of imperfection, as an expression of that imperfection, but with a larger song singing it than what is keeping the imperfection in place. So, yeah, it is all that needs to be done. Being right where you are, knowing that this, cacophony of not this, is actually the process by which this becomes that, and that becomes this. That's all you need to know. Becoming Krishna is a becoming. Becoming is a verb.
Yes.
Not yet being Krishna. It's becoming Krishna. And this is the process of true transformation. This is feeling it in your body, experiencing it in your body, is really all you have to be the knower of. You don't have to go out and fix things or have them better or different. The coronavirus might be teaching you that this stage of your life is done. It might be showing you that this whole thing is to be finished so that another thing can break out of the shell of that previous good purpose, so that something larger can manifest. So it could serve. It may also allow you to save some parts of what you've created as a means of stepping into the expansion. You don't know that. We don't know yet. The universe is testing that right now in you. It's testing your ability to take what has been the best of what has come to serve something greater. Otherwise, it'll all fall away in order so that something greater can create something totally new. This is what I see.
Okay.
The end game is for you to be Krishna. Internally, we work for Krishna. Then, where you are now, you're working with Krishna. And at some point, you'll be working as Krishna. At some point, you already are working as Krishna, just like Sat does. You just shared in the same way Sat shared. What brought that forward, what you did was manifest to all of us, something of the battle, something of this battlefield, this Kurukshetra, in which the new Dharma is established, the Dharma Ketra. This is the Mahabharat. And we share our experience in the reality of the felt sense of it in our body. The more we can embody this, the more powerful, more perfect, and more all the notes get sung in the song of your manifestation. There you go, David.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
I'm just wondering, do you want to keep interacting with people, or do you want to bring forward a second part?
Okay, let's take a pause because I want to see if what I have here serves or hasn't been already addressed. Okay, yes, there is a piece I want to bring, and that is there is a technology, and that's what I'm discovering. It's not what we're all discovering, is the elemental and chakra techniques, the power of mantra, that these are actually powerful ways to help awaken the 5 elements. That's right. You look at the 13th chapter as well as in the 7th chapter, what it's speaking of is the design of the field of the body. The great elements, the ego, the intellect and the unmanifest, the 10 sense organs, the mind, and the 5 objects of senses. So, and in chapter 7, says it more directly, more specifically, that there is the material nature, the part of us that's in matter, the part of us that has a body, that is a body, that has a personality, has a you organized around having a body. And that body is made up of 8 parts: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intellect, and ego. And then there's the other nature, the non-material nature, the spiritual nature. Apart from this, there is my higher nature, the universal soul, which is eminent in the embodied being and supports the whole world. We have both. It's not like one or the other. We are that which is here for the whole world is the knower, and that which has these 5 elements shaping your physicality and the capacity of your body to carry the knower is in the body, along with the mind and the intellect and the ego, which gets organized around the body, but the body is the source. So these techniques, the elemental techniques is a start point. but also the chakra techniques, that there is this simultaneous, already designed structure that has allowed physical matter bodies to be created, that is subtle, that comes from the spirit world, that there is a concurrent spiritual body linked directly, very closely, the subtle physical with our physical body. And this has the greatest capacity to translate the spiritual force into our bodies. So it's the spiritual body that allows for the transformational process to happen. This spiritual body is pre-designed. It has built into it like holes on a flute, the 5 frequencies, earth, water, fire, air, ether. It has built into it these capacities, but they can't all sing in the physical body, because the physical body is too clogged up, too conditioned, too contracted, too made too dense to be able to sing, to play those notes. So when we in a physical body start learning a mantra that is aligned with these elemental frequencies, it starts empowering the body, the physical body, to be in touch with the energetic body. And the energetic body starts becoming more and more tangibly accessible to us till there's this sense of vibrating all the time. There is a sense of your being's vibration, of the being existing. It's an existing vibration. It's not a doing yet, but it's the foundation of doing. It is the being and the becoming. It's an activity. So there is a sense of energy starts occurring in the physical body. That's the evidence that that is becoming this. And the mantras become the doorways by which it can enter and help clear out the clogged up channels in our system. Now, these 5 elements have a direct relationship to the nervous system in the human body. They're closer to the nervous system than they are with the blood and the tissues and the organs. And therefore, there is this place where the elements and the chakras interface, where the earth element and the first chakra, and the water element and the second chakra, and the fire element and the third chakra are interfaced, and so on, the fourth chakra and the element of air, and so on, the 5th and 6th chakra, the element of ether. So there is this principle by which the body in its neurological organization also is more open. So when the elements in the physical body have been purified enough, then the chakras can directly receive these notes. When the physical body learns the vibration of that chakra that's unique to the physical body, it opens up an accelerated alignment between the energetic body, the subtle physical body, and the physical body. And that is the body transformation. This process, of course, is supported by forces beyond just the subtle physical, by beings that are here for the purpose in the subtle dimensions to assist matter being transmuted into a more perfect vehicle for spirit. So we begin to start tapping into forces that take over. They're relatively mechanical forces. They're not like even personally self-aware. They have a purpose, they have an intelligence, and they come in and assist the physical transformation of the body. So I wanted to share that piece because it's clear in the work that we're doing that the people who've been with me for years are greatly benefiting from these elemental and mantra chakras. Now, of course, it still means we have had to do the work in our personality, in our psychology, in our habit adaptations, in our functionings in the world, our issues of guilt and doubt and shame, the stories that we've told about ourselves. These are our responsibility to manage, but energetically, by clearing up the channels, then that part of our personality that's aligned, part of our intelligence, the part of our mind can learn to more effectively dismantle those structures in a way that serves this ability of our body and our personality and our mind and our intellect and our ego to be in collaboration with the realizations of these 4 stages of the knower. So I wanted to bring that forward because this is an applied science. Ultimately, what I got as an architect is I was looking for the nuts and bolts, and these are the nuts and bolts. Every building, no matter what the steel or the concrete, has nuts and bolts or rebar or something that keeps it together, that keeps the organization. What I'm realizing is how powerful these mantras are in making at least your body more capable collaborator with the transformational process of making that this. Okay, I think that's the essence of what I wanted to get across. I wanted to get across that not only is it this work of being present, being conscious, and holding the paradox of the process in ourselves, but the specific empowerment that occurs when your body can tune, align with the vibration that the universe is trying to bring into your body. If some of you have learned these elemental techniques and they've not been impacting, and that's not because the elemental techniques aren't working. That's because your body channels are blocked and they are closing down. Now, this can also be overruled by a strong intellect. Strong intellects can disempower it. They carry a certain degree of power, of these powers of attention, and power of what they make important. You know, this power of a strong intellect is going to shut down the body's ability to open up. A very fast, sharp intellect, especially one that's based on fear or repulsion, can become a major obstacle to anything working. It'll dismiss it, disregard it, and it won't stay in the process long enough to let the chakra vibration sink into the physical body. So if the mind says, "Now this isn't going to work," I guarantee if it's developed enough, it won't. So you got to see if there is that in you as well. I do know these work. Your body will respond. The people who teach these techniques can feel it even if you can't. The principle here is you go with faith to use these to empower and to come back down from the refuge that the awareness and the intellect develops, to let go of the arrogance and say, well, maybe this could work. Let's try it. I doubt it, but maybe it could. The maybe is enough, especially if you're linked with me. The maybe is a weak faith, but it is a possible faith. Persistence is the art, because the persistence makes the truth more apparent. Initially, it may be just a faint echo of what is true. Well, maybe I'm responsible for why I got so upset with my friend. Ignorance is that which is keeping us believing we are right. The coming of the truth is beginning to question that assumption. So faith is the willingness to accept our ignorance, accept to recognize, no matter better than accept, but to recognize maybe we are ignorant, right? What do we say? There's 2 levels of ignorance, right? Well, 3 levels of knowing and 2 levels of ignorance. The first is not knowing you don't know. Of course, that's the most fixed, most unchangeable part. And then the second level of ignorance, which is also the second level of knowledge, is suspecting maybe you don't know. Or not knowing you don't know, thinking you know. And then, of course, when ignorance dissipates, then it's the third level of knowing, and that is clearly knowing you don't know, humility. So that's why it's said in the Bhagavad Gita, in the chapter of 4th chapter of knowledge, is know this knowledge from the enlightened masters through humility, self-inquiry, and service or surrender. So this whole idea of being able to discover what is still hidden in us, the doubter, the suspector, the one that you took on, the child that believed that the authority of the parent that said, don't believe this shit. Only thing that matters is what's in the world, what you can see, touch, feel, make. You know, that discard the parts of you that are still skeptical, still saying, nah, it can't happen. And even if it could, it couldn't happen to me. That's also finding that is part of this process of discovering the true knower and where the knower has given its power away to ignorance. All right. So, want to open it back up, or do you have one?
I just had one.
Yeah.
Nuts, while we're in the nuts and bolts thing, part of the today, I was curious if you would have anything to say about the foundational practice of meeting energy as sensation in the body and how transformative that is. And I was kind of struck by when you were dialoguing with Shree, and she checked in and said, how do I do that again? And you confirmed it.
Yeah.
But just so that's like the core foundational principle.
Everything can be resolved within your body with the interface between the body and the knower of the body. Your attention, your recognizing that what your body is telling you is probably a greater truth than what your mind can tell you. That your body has information, a way of knowing that is more fundamental with the design of the ignorance that may be arising than even the heart can know. Therefore, the body is the entry point to the diving into the area of that part of ourselves that we don't know, or that part of ourselves we think we know, but we don't know. To go further, you see? So the body tells us if we're bullshitting ourselves, if we choose to listen to it. If we develop the listening for the body, what it's telling us. Now that takes time, takes intelligence, takes a languaging. And that is what we're trying to develop in this work, is that the embodiment is a process of embodying that will go on for as long as you're in the becoming. It is an embodying process. And we deepen our alignment with that capacity depending upon the realizations that are available to us. Yes, so that is pretty much the core of the teachings, that the more you can meet the issue within your body, more you can hold, like Satsangs did with the rage, with the anger that came up, right? Real hard to hold that one, yeah? But that was a lot more power than dragging his body along to show up each day, right? That has in it inherently a great more actualizing capacity than the collapse of the shame adaptation. It is therefore a truth, and it has a validity, and his ability to hold it was that he was eating the empowerment inherent in the raging, which he discovered as he shared, by holding it, not by beating himself up or trying to understand it better, but being the paradox of the cacophony of this versus that. And in the process, transmuting it. Took him, wasn't convenient, didn't occur when you wanted to occur. Certainly not comfortable. You don't get to sleep or eat or enjoy anything while you're in that process, right? But it is the nature of eating poison. Poison in the beginning, nectar at the end. That's the sattvic happiness. It's worth it in the end. Interim, it's killing you. All right, was that nuts and bolts enough?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, it's
Tire
wonderful.
meeting the road. It is just like that. That's where the rubber wears off. Eventually get a bald tire and finally the car stops. Then you're there. All right.
Okay, so let's open it up to really anyone who has.
You know what I'd like to do? Listen, open up to the other trainers.
Yeah, okay.
And see if they have anything to add or share into this.
Yeah, so we have 20 minutes. So if the facilitators, if you have something that you'd like to offer, bring into the space, please do so.
First up is Janika.
Namaste.
Namaste. Good to see you.
You talked about the elementals. And I also like to bring up, I was leading the morning meditation today, and it was so much energy coming into my belly. And I wonder, that's a long time ago that came. And for me, when the energy comes in there, is power. And then you talked about magnificence, and we had a meeting this afternoon here in Stockholm or Zoom. And it just came over me, the magnificence of what we are. So I feel I'm very much aligned with where you are coming from right now in this Gita thing. And since I've been working with Elemental, I think it's 3.5 years or so. And I learned it from someone that was very transcendental. And I think it took me half a year before something started to move inside of me. But it really started to shift when I was starting to teach it.
Yes.
And what I notice nowadays when I teach it anyway, and other people nowadays that are more embodied, is that we bring people into their bodies just by our being, because it's a deep, deep transmission in just our being.
It's in the very subtle physical body that activates the same principle in their bodies. It's interesting. So that was, sink or swim. I threw you into the water, right? You took what you got and you created it. And the thing is, Yannaka's holding. He is like Satas in this area of these techniques. And we're creating the program together about making these part of this work. So this is clearly evidence, and he's speaking to a capacity that comes not only by learning them, but by transmitting them to others. And the power of playing that role does accelerate your own capacity to use your body as a collaborative instrument in bringing that to this or this to that. Perfect. Exactly.
Something else also, that embodiment is, when I am in reaction, I'm not in my body. When I'm in reaction, it could be like Sadas was in a reaction of the power that came towards him, the anger and the rage that is coming. For me, when I'm not in my core, I react as such Sadas does. But if I am in my core, I'm just eating it without anything happening. Because when I'm in my power, for me, the power is, now I've felt this a couple of years. So I can rest there.
There's your key. There's your anchor. That's thought in the body. It's the true authority. It can stand in the midst of all onslaughts. It's the unmovable capacity to be the unchanging in the midst of the ever-changing. When it's embodied, then all the universe bows to you. The waves crash against you and then grow calm. You become the ocean that can accept all the rivers. It is true for you. I know this. And still there's the person, right? There's still the attachment. There's still all these other parts of the personality there simultaneously. It doesn't diminish what has come. It just becomes an arena of inclusion, of incorporating, of integrating. And that inclusionary process is we call integration. And that is all there is to do for as long as you live, as long as any of us who lives. When this has come, then you're walking the earth to shift the world. You shift the world wherever you step. And it's your case, you're very clear how much the body is the means for doing so.
Yeah. And it's also that I remember when I opened up in the 90s, I couldn't go in the subway. I was kind of teared apart by all the energies, and it was so much fear. And I felt all these energies flying around wherever it was, and I wasn't grounded. And
Exactly.
The more I've been grounding in, there's less and less things that is affecting me.
That's exactly what happens. The principle of grounding is a lot of misunderstanding, but the principles, everyone speaks of a different kind of grounding. When I do the psychic technique where you send a grounding cord, that's like the beginning, using the psychic awareness to create in imagination a way to ground. But the real grounding comes by converting this to that and bringing that to this. So we bring the knower to the body and the body to the knower. That is takes time, because the body is in time and space. The body is the means by which duality exists. Without our bodies, there would be no duality. There would be no time. There would only be the eternal, ever, never changing now. So it is in the body over time that a process allows for the Supreme Being to know himself as you, to know itself as you, not just him. Like Radha said, there's a female version of Krishna. So to become that, to embody that, is the opportunity. So embodying, you could say, is the whole purpose of the spiritual path. It's the reason you awakened. It is also the reason everything was born, to someday, at some point, be able to embody itself as the knower.
And when I'm in reaction, I know there's a part of me that I'm not embodying. And I think it is for everybody. It's including you, because I can see how you are evolving all the time. So as you say, this is a never-ending journey.
I'm glad you said that, because this idea of perfection of the teacher is such an obstacle to becoming or getting what the teacher brings. That limitations of the teacher actually is the evidence of the authenticity of the awakening. The more you can see it, the teacher, the more true you can bet the teacher is. It is really a reflection of the fact that we're all in this together, and there is no difference. It's just a matter of our ability to organize our existing powers as consciousness in our body, aligned with becoming that. This is the whole call of the Gita. This is the purpose of the Gita. And the real call, of course, is for all of humanity during this time of peril. And that's why you're getting this, why it's so accelerating, why people just in a few years are experiencing very intensive transformational processes that would not have occurred in the ordinary unfolding of spiritual awakening, let alone even coming to the ultimate outcome that we're pointing to.
I'd like to add one last thing, and that is, this power is so threatening if I don't have my heart open.
Yes.
So there needs to be an alignment all the way, from spirit through my mind and intellect and all the way down into the heart and into the belly. If it's just the belly, it's just ruthless.
That's right. And that's what that would use with the realization, the second realization, is they would retreat to the power. But the heart is what tempers the power. The undeveloped heart is due to shame. It's due to need, and thereby shame. So when we can also hold our need to be seen, the need for love, then we can also begin to come out of the constrictions of the shame that the need creates, and expand our heart to not go to a place where it's not about needing other than the need to serve, the need to help others.
So for me, it's also that it's not always emotional. It can be, I can deal with things on an energetic level also.
Yes.
I can see that at some point it goes over from emotional to physical and then just energetics. So when I'm in energetic, it just evaporates.
Exactly. You've gone beyond the gunas. Emotions are gunas. When you can actually shift your vibration where there is no more emotion, you've gone beyond the gunas, you've gone transcendent. But it's not because you're afraid of the guna. It's because you have the capacity to go beyond the gunas so that you can be more useful in whatever may be the work that's coming before you. Otherwise, you swim through all the gunas, and all the gunas get transmuted into means of serving the manifestation. The tamas becomes the stability and the consistency. The rajas becomes the force. The sattva becomes the wisdom and the knowing and the presence. So they get converted into manifesting expressions of the Supreme Being. All right, we should move on. Thank you, Yannicka. Oh, but one other thing. One thing you should know about Yannicka. He's persistent. He is stuck with this through thick and thin for years and years, even with no evidence he was with these techniques that they were going to go anywhere. He stuck with it and discovered the richness of what was given to him. Persistence. Here's also the key. Namaste. Okay, who's up next?
Next up is Aditima.
Aditima, perfect. Good. Just the person I wanted to see.
Me too.
I wanted to speak to my version of what you have been sharing about the grace in meeting darkness, and what Kali Ma said, it's like it's happening here. Because this morning I had this experience I'm going to share now. I'm working with a group of people where two people are in conflict, and I'm the one who's supposed to be middling and like helping out. And it's not going so well. And then I could feel that using my head and try to listen to one and then went to the next person, having separate meetings, it didn't go anywhere. But then I could feel that I was resisting this on some level. So when I saw that I didn't let them into my body, or I didn't let me connect fully, then I did that, and I let one of them in, and I felt where in the body that person was contracted and what was happening. And I could feel my match. And I could also see how what was going on for that person was related to that, and the same with the other person. And I could see the innocence in them both, that they were really trying to convince the other of the truth they saw. They were like innocent in their absolute like awfulness towards each other. And it was like when I met that in myself, and I think it's one of the first times I could truly see they are me, I am them. This is they come to show me, and it was like parts of my family pattern. So I felt like I resolved it, and I don't think they will resolve it because they want to be in conflict. But I felt like they came for me. This doesn't have to be solved out there. I solved it in here. Thanks very much.
Yes, yes. And that actually has a power. It has a power because they vested you in the power to heal this. So even though they may still be vested in their ego, they're using their awareness and their attention power to support their ego. They also gave some of that power away to you. And when you came to the resolution, you planted the seed of the resolution in them. This is the way we transmute the world. We come from a different paradigm that keeps things stuck. We come from a paradigm of out of helping or understanding into direct experience and meeting it as the issue within ourselves. And then we become the resolution, even if they're not yet able to become the resolution. So it's done for us. It may not be done for them. That is the nature of all that needs to be done. Everything that needs to be resolved, Trump, politics, economy, coronavirus, whatever, resolved within ourselves will act as a spreading tidal wave of consciousness that will shift the error that's not allowing us to see the true peril that's behind it, where the incapacity of the world to support her becoming, her creation. So this is the opportunity, nothing else. Now you met it in the nuts and bolts of your work, right? You met it in the nuts and bolts of your life. You know, Shree Ma met it in the nuts and bolts of talking to the veterinarian office, right? Satas met it in the nuts and bolts of a reaction to someone who threw a cannonball at him, not knowing they threw a cannonball. They were just releasing something that they had. All as grace and as opportunities to strengthen our ability to come to responsibility, not just ability, but responsibility, that we can feel in the response the core of the thisness that is still stuck and obscured and structured, so that that can manifest. And there's the work in the step-by-step pieces of our life. We learn to eat our own elephant, then we learn to eat other elephants for other people, and then we eat the elephants for the world. This capacity is through the doing and in the recognition of the role you have in existence. So this is becoming Krishna, beautiful example. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you. And next up is Radha Krishna.
Radha, yes.
Hello.
Hello.
though. So I met it in in the same way Sat Das was sitting in diminishment. I have been sitting in utter shame and diminishment for a while now. And I'm so grateful for what you said about the intellect taking over, because that's exactly what happened. I've been participating with Yannicka in transmitting the elementals and leading the booths, and I suddenly didn't believe in myself. I suddenly felt I was a pretender, that I didn't feel anything and that I wasn't embodied, and how could I teach what I was not a demonstration of? And I so believed in my falsity.
Powerful.
And so I heard you now, and I realized that's exactly what I've done. My intellect has decided this is not real. And I was in such shame. And I was sitting with that shame, using my intellect, trying to figure it out. Trapped, totally trapped.
Got it.
So I so appreciate your showing today of that, because I suddenly realized, oh my God, I'm happy to be doing this. I'm happy to be sharing this. I'm happy to face the fear of doing it wrong and all that, you know.
All right, well, it's a perfect unfolding. The structures in your realization of yourself and the structures of your coming to the awareness place, the undeveloped parts of those realizations, all got met in the devotion. You're now in the becoming the goddess. You're becoming the Radha for the Krishna. So therefore, this is the part that's opening the ability to meet these unmet parts. And it's so important to meet them in your body and not in what has been a powerful tool and aid for you in your survival when you're getting a sense of self-worth and finding a way to make it work in the world. So you don't have to be afraid or diminished. So it is going beyond that when you come to the love. And that's what it is, Radha. What is Radha in relation? She was Krishna's greatest lover. So the principle of Radha is the female expression of Krishna. It is the great love.
Well, I think that Krishna was Radha's greatest lover, but yes.
I assure you, reciprocal. So the principles of the male and the female, ultimately they merge, but interimly they're a useful division. Being the devotee is the means to becoming that to which you are devoted. And it's the fastest way because it's almost all in the body. And the body is the part that makes it real. So that was perfect. All right. Thank you, Radha, for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're
Phil's
there.
Is it?
We got.
Phil has had his hand up.
Okay,
We just have
one more.
Okay.
All right, let's go. Two more people.
Philip?
Namaste, Philip.
Wow, I thought it was going to be over, and so I wouldn't come forward. But now you spoke very well to what I was going to bring forward, which is faith.
Very good.
It feels that faith, it feels like that's part of each of the four realizations, but it feels so indispensable in the third and fourth, as you described those.
That's correct.
And a willingness to surrender to the leap, and not knowing where I'm leaping.
Exactly.
That is difficult. And
it's also the 17th chapter of the Gita.
It feels like a doorway.
Yes.
it feels like a doorway to gift.
You got
To
it
gift the
correctly,
grace.
Philip. It is all along in every leap, every shift from one state of knower to another. Faith is the thing that has us cross the chasm of what we've known before to what we do not yet know. So, and this is why it is also the ultimate faith is that which leaps without needing any evidence. And that means that the realization is now integrated in the previous states sufficiently that the fourth state comes naturally. It just is. We're basically made of faith. And what is that faith? To come to that which we have faith for. When we come to faith, the completion occurs, and we are the Supreme Being. We are then the object of faith. We're the object of sacrifice. We're the reason all of creation strives. We are the source of faith for all beings. In that moment, there's no need for faith. Water is everywhere. What's the use of a well? Except for those parts of our previous realizations that have not been fully integrated. Therefore, the body you can have faith in to be clear evidence of what is left in the perfection of you as a knower. And that's the real application of faith, the ability to trust, to develop your knower enough to recognize the deep embodied wisdom the body carries, the great truth and capacity the body carries. Then the faith is in your own existence in a body as a person in existence with a purpose. All right, Philip.
It also feels very much not about doing.
Yeah. Yep.
But being with what there is to do.
All right, there you go. Being is always the process of the knower meeting the body. There is no being without a body. The body can be, but without the knower there, the body doesn't know its being. It needs to have a knower. And of course, therefore, the two were inseparable all along. Okay. And one more. Thank you, Philip.
Next up is Nella.
Nella. Namaste. Good to see you again.
I'm just here with a question. Yes, I lost my uncle of COVID-19 like 8 hours ago in Venezuela. And it's just a grief not being there for my father and for my family physically, but I know I can be there energetically. However, this is an event that happens a lot. When something shakes me or event happens, then I have to teach Zumba in 2 hours, right? So I go in service, yeah? And I need to be there for the people that I'm putting myself for. And my mission is to create a space for these people who come to develop a different relationship in their lives, to develop a joyful relationship with what life presents, and to dance with it, dance it. So my question to you, Shree, is I have a shower, I wash myself, I put myself of service, and as I'm driving there, I always said, make this a space, I offer the space to something bigger than myself. And so the class takes place, and that has happened many times in my life, in difficult times. And I think sometimes things shifted straight away in my body. And I can see that in my body, it's like little squares that where I can indulge the mood, or I can feel this, or I can step into the supreme, where everything transcends or nothing. So my question to you is this that is being taking place in my life, is it a bypass, or is just perhaps a tool that I've been using in order, and is useful? As I can see that it definitely stepped me into the possibility of that transcend whatever is happening. Like,
Yes, I got it.
I'm feeling my body contracted because I'm not there for my father to hug him. Then by dancing and opening my chest, and things started to shift inside of me. So I want to hear about you.
Exactly. Your demonstration is exactly what Satas demonstrated. You can shift your vibration. And what allows you to shift your vibration is have a purpose bigger than the emotional event that's occurring for you, which is simultaneous, right? They're both here. I watch you. You shift into your purpose, and then you go into the contraction. Then you step. You did about 3 times in front of us. So I want to thank you, Nella, for demonstrating this so beautifully. Now, what hasn't happened yet for you is it hasn't yet organized in your body. It's still in the process of organizing. You kind of hodgepodge figured out how it works so far, and you've done a good job. And it is what's brought you to me. And it is what right now is serving you in your work with me, is to serve in this way, because it has an immediate opportunity for you to use that situation of teaching dance and moving into relationship with life in a new way, using the body, is aligned with this work. For you, it's giving you moment by moment opportunities to meet this, which is the emotional reaction to the news from Venezuela, and that which is coming to you more and more as the knower that carries the purpose, that is able to hold it all. What you're dealing with is the part of your first realization as you as a person. And that part of your realization that has the transcendence. And you have a little bit of the third realization of the divine love. But these other two are not yet able to integrate with what's trying to manifest here. So what you're happening in your system is you're meeting these other two. You're meeting your purpose and the role it plays, and the part of you that needs that role in order to not get overtaken by the diminishment of the programming of your upbringing. And so they're all kind of working out as you grow into this third stage of being the Divine Mother. And of course, you're called to me for more than that. You're called to me for the Supreme Being, but your system has to catch up and get organized. What will happen, I'm going to suggest, is for you to start learning the elemental techniques. So we're going to set up the programs in motion. We've got a little bit more of training before it'll go out broadly. And then the opportunity would be to sign up to start learning the elemental techniques. This will help align the 3 parts of your knowings in your body in a way that you'll get more immediate access and come to a quicker resolution between this, thatness, and this. Because the thisness is the upset with your family, and also part of the thisness is your work in the world. So bringing that to both of these will happen more and more as your body becomes opened. The subtle body starts opening up in your physical body in an aligned way. But otherwise, it's perfect, Nella. I think you're just perfect. I'm so much delight whenever I see you. I know what your future will be.
Thank you.
All right.
I just want to thank you, Shree.
Okay.
I mean, what I'm struck by is how it's the vastness and the greatness of today, how you laid out the entire spiritual journey in 4 realizations, and you took us through the mysteries of them. I mean, and then at the same time, you grounded the whole process in the ordinary moment by moment grind of meeting it in our bodies. So I'm just touched by the greatness of your wisdom and your realization, and the greatness of your ordinariness, what you shared about the craving and the rage and eyeing the sannyasis and seeing if they had a better angle. I always am just enlivened when I learn a little bit more of the human arc of your journey.
Yeah.
So empowering.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you got to know. The principle of how available I am, of course, I'm managing. But those of you like yourself who are coming to me, then I let you see what it is still in me I'm struggling with, still trying to manifest. The imperfection is really the evidence of the Supreme in us. If we can begin to recognize that they are each doorways to the more full expression of the possibility of we are as the first little self-aware person and everything in between, then we can see all parts of us serve in the manifestation. We become the demonstration. So you did a wonderful job. I had to match your handout. Yeah, I said this is the whole thing before we started. She thought that she got the whole thing. Don't we have another 2 weeks left? So I had to match it. So I matched it. Thank you for setting a playground that I could play in. So I filled it. So this is the opportunity as we go forward, and this is what a demonstration of the opportunity for all of you is the unfolding of an inherent capacity within you that is going to keep growing and expanding as long as you stay in the alignment of those powers of you that can align with this work. So it is love. Love is your greatest resource. Your devotion is the greatest resource. You're willing, that will give you all the love, all the faith and the strength and the capacity to endure that you need. That's the truth of this. Okay, so we're good. Thank you. So we're going to just take a few minutes of sitting in silence and stillness, and then we'll see you next week, Tuesday. Hari Om Hat Sat, Hari Om Hat Sat, Hari Om Hat Sat Shree. All glory to the Supreme. May truth manifest. Namaste. Thank you all.